Okay, I believe we are now live over on YouTube. So, welcome everyone to our Tuesday afternoon live stream. This week, I am your host, Dana Morningstar, and with me is the lovely and talented Angie Atkinson. So, hi, Angie, and thanks for being here.
My pleasure, as always. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we were talking, Angie and I were talking before we went live, and she had brought up a really wonderful point about kind of the struggles and the different approaches that people can have, life coaches and therapists and such, and even friends and family and spiritual leaders, I would include in that mix, with kind of working with survivors and helping them move forward. And so we wanted to talk about the topic of kind of getting the right help for you and getting the right validation. So, Angie, take it away. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay. So I know a lot of survivors, we tend in general to be kind of sensitive to criticism and to bullying because of what we went through for obvious reasons. And I recently saw someone, and I'm not going to bring up any names, but I saw someone in our niche who in our type of in our community who was kind of calling out survivors in a way that I thought was a little inappropriate. And the reason I felt that way is because I know for me, even in my basically healed state, I felt like it was triggery. It felt like it was the tough love like we got from our those of us who grew up with toxic parents. And I think it's just really important to recognize that whoever you choose to follow or to heal with, you choose someone who fits you, someone who doesn't make you feel um, pushed or bullied or shamed or like you're doing something wrong by going at your own pace for recovery. You know, some of us are going to come through it really quickly and some of us are going to take a while, and that's okay. It's okay to be who you are, and it's okay to take recovery at your own pace. You don't need to feel like you have to meet some certain milestone at a certain time. And I just want to put that out there because everybody's situation is different. Everybody's life is different, and trauma bonding is a real thing. So what are your thoughts, Dana?
Yeah, I agree. For those that have either not been through it, or there's a weird place in healing too, where after we've healed enough from this, that we kind of forget how raw. It's like, I would imagine it's like with childbirth or any
Mm-hmm.
other traumatic event, you forget how scary and intense that moment is.
It's a valid point.
And it's like that with any real stage of healing from a traumatic event. So um, and a lot of anybody can forget this, even if they have been through this. And there are times where I have said something with the best of intentions and it's landed completely wrong. And so I think that's one of the biggest things for anybody who's working or trying to support another survivor is just being open to realizing that if we're coming from a place of help, it's we have to kind of keep taking the temperature of where this other person is and making sure that our communications having the intended result, or else then we're just kind of bullying them with tough love, um, or invalidating them, even if we don't mean to. And I think that's one of the challenges with working with people that have been through trauma is in many ways, it can be like diffusing a bomb. And any little false move can really set a person back. And so I think there's so much to be said for really having that rapport and that connection with another person. So they realize I'm coming from a good place. I'm on your side. Um, if I ever cross a line, like, let's talk about it. If I cross a line, if I say something, then it doesn't mean that you're too sensitive or that it's some sort of issue with you. It just means that I crossed a line. So let's back it up a little bit and kind of make sure that we're on the same page and smooth that over. But it's after trauma, people are, um, there's a million different ways that a person can be traumatized. And it's impossible for another person to know kind of where those lines are with that said, there are certain things that I think are just kind of the basics of a healing relationship, that need to be there. And if a person's if you're reaching out and wherever you're getting that support from, whether it be a support group, a life coach, a therapist, whoever, you name it, if you're feeling invalidated or bullied or tough love, please realize that you might have to go through a few different people, a few different groups, what have you, to really find the right spot for you. So if you're not getting the results that you're looking for, or if you are feeling continually re-victimized, it can sometimes just be that it's not a good fit, and that has nothing to do with you. So, oh, you're on mute.
That's correct. And I wanted to throw in, I think one of the things that I have learned along the way is that there are some people that you will connect with, and there are some people that you will not. I personally, in my own world over there on my channel, I have some people who love me, and I have some people who are just like, she's too much for me, or she's not enough for me, or whatever. Everybody's different. And so there are people who will connect with you, who you will feel connected to. And, those people, if you are the sort of person who wants that sort of tough love, push kind of thing, and you're not feeling it from someone, then definitely go look for someone who's going to offer you that. My point is, everybody's going to connect with a different sort of person, and that's why it's important to keep your options open and keep your eyes open, and I hope that you do connect with someone. Now, there's something in the chat here that I want to address about this topic from Agatha, or Agata. I never know how to say it. Yeah. Anyway, okay. She said some are disassociated first, and we aren't that sensitive, but rather overprotective. Question, would you agree that maybe I wasn't that sensitive because my pain tolerance is just so high? And I would say yes, absolutely. That's part of it, because you do become very, I think, self-protective, especially if you grow up with someone like this, and then you go ahead and jump into, which a lot of us do, end up in a relationship with someone like this, or more than one. Certainly become strong and tough, and you can either be like, I've had some clients who were like a ball of nerves. You could, like, breathing on them might hurt. And then I've had other clients who seem like it doesn't bother them at all, but deep down it's bothering them, but they don't really know how to express the pain because they've never been given the opportunity to do that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, yeah. Anyway, I thought that was important. Do you have any thoughts on what she said?
Yeah, I think, and I was calling her Agata for the longest time. She's actually a friend of mine. Oh, you're on mute again. And I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but now you're back. Okay. Yeah, she's a friend of mine, and I've been calling her Agata forever, and she never corrected me. But really, it's Agatha. So
Agatha.
There's no H, but Agatha. Yes. Anyways, so yeah, I think one of the challenges for so many people, especially after abuse, I think in general, because this is kind of how society trains people, is to kind of focus on the positive and gloss over the negative, and give people the benefit of the doubt, and to not really know where our boundaries are with stuff like that. And it's times 100 after abuse. And so that's a really big part of healing for so many people, is getting back in tune with when they're actually being mistreated, and being able to validate themselves and realize, it doesn't matter what this other person's intentions were. We can release that need. It's about knowing what's comfortable or uncomfortable for you. Mm-hmm. And that's such a huge mindset shift for so many people, myself included, to make. And when you do that, it kind of releases this need of figuring out, okay, well, did they really mean to do this? Am I too sensitive? Like, what's going on? It's like, okay, you know what? I just didn't appreciate that tone of voice or their approach. This does not work for me. And that's okay. Yeah. But like you said, so many abuse survivors, especially because they've been abused. So they've been attacked generally on all fronts for probably a very, very long time, possibly their whole life, and been invalidated by that. So they really struggle with knowing that it's okay to be upset when you're being treated in a way that's not okay with you, and to voice yourself. And I think too, another big challenge is because so many of us tend to, I think, again, this is a societal thing in general. People tend to look at certain people in positions of authority, a life coach, a therapist, the doctor, whoever, as they know better than I do. And I think this is something that can be really dangerous, especially about the mental health profession, is it's this, we're taking a backseat position on our own, what we need, and letting somebody else kind of steer the ship. And that can be really dangerous if they don't know what they're talking about, or if they're doing they're full of a lot of well-intended bad advice, or they're a bully.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's okay to disagree with authority, I guess is what I'm saying. And you are the ultimate, at the end of the day, this is about your healing journey. And if it's, you steer the ship. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, spot on. I was, just encourage everyone to think about your own intuition, the gut feelings that you get, and learn to listen to those again, because truly what Dana is saying is 100% accurate. But a lot of us have been taught to not listen to ourselves. And this is part of recovery. We need to learn to listen to ourselves and learn to understand that we know best about our own healing if we really think about it. Certainly you can get direction from someone. Certainly someone can help you kind of see something from a new perspective, or give you an idea that might help you, work it out. But you can't just assume that because someone says, I'm an expert, that they are, or that they're an expert in your own healing. You know what I'm saying? You can't just assume. And I know that sounds funny, but it's true. You have to put your own intuition in play here. And as Dana was talking about the invalidation factor, I think that's one of the soul crushing parts of narcissistic abuse, is the constant invalidation. And that's why it's so important for us to relearn, or start to learn for the first time, how to actually listen to our own gut, our own intuition. For me, that was one of the biggest, most important parts of healing altogether. So,
yep. Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the core of healing, is getting reconnected to our authentic self, and knowing our thoughts and feelings and opinions, and being in tune with our emotions, and seeing that our emotions are connected to our environment, that we're not just kind of feeling things because we randomly feel things. Like, there's certain emotions are certain signs, irritation, frustration, anger, fear. These are all general signs that have boundaries been violated. And
yes.
Somebody, Siobhan, in the chat, I hope I pronounced your name right, had said, I don't consider tough love to be loving. And yes, Angie and I both agree on this. We were talking about this before we went live. It's kind of a euphemism for bullying.
Yes.
And it's kind of forcing, this is just what it is. And if you've got a problem with that, then that's your problem. And this is something that a lot of survivors get of, you need to get over this. You need to, it's been a year now, or it's been 10 years now, or get on with it, or what have you. And that's shaming another person. Like, it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you something, one of the things that I personally think is important for us as survivors as well is, a lot of us came up, and this is slightly to the left of what we're talking about, but it will help too. We all came up with very judgmental people. I think we can agree with that, or at least we have been with them if we didn't grow up with them. People who judged us and everyone around us, right? And we heard the judgments about other people. We heard the judgments about ourselves. And so a lot of times we pick up the judgmentalness, right? One of the things that I've learned from a lot of things, but during my recovery was, judging people is, it's a terrible thing to do. And what I mean is, now I'm going to be honest with you. If I find out you're like someone who's abusing children, or some crazy stuff like that, I'm totally going to judge you. For sure. Okay. I'm not going to lie. There are certain things that I think are intrinsic things, but in general, like, as long as, let's say parenting, as long as your kid is like happy, healthy, safe, and not treated in an abusive fashion, I don't really care how you parent your kid, as long as I don't care how you keep your house. I don't care what you do, as long as you're not doing anything illegal or hurting people. You know what I'm saying? And I think it took me a while to get to that point, but oh my gosh, it's so freeing. And I think one of the things about the reason I'm bringing this up is that I think when we stay in that judgmental frame of mind, where we're like, oh, everybody's wrong around me, and even when they are, I've come to this live and let live thing. I don't have to let you be in my space if you're somebody toxic to me, but I'm still, I think it's better to just turn away from the things that you don't like in people and don't let those people in your circle, if that makes any sense. Am I making sense, Dana?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's another really big, I think, turning point in healing is kind of knowing our limits. And we've talked about this before, but like it takes some time to kind of get our sea legs with setting boundaries, because when people first start waking up to this, they're like, oh my gosh, I look around and I see nothing but problematic behavior or narcissists everywhere. And then it's kind of the natural, well, they tend to really doubt themselves. But then after that phase passes, then they tend to normally kind of do more of the fortressing with boundaries and really start cutting off anybody that shows any signs of problematic behavior. And then kind of over time, they're able to level that out a little bit and start using more assertiveness skills, and then kind of figuring out, okay, there's certain people that maybe I don't want to cut off because they're family, and the collateral damage is too much. And so instead of spending as much time with them as I used to, now I'm only going to spend a few days or a few hours, and then that works for them. Right. But it's this continual kind of seesaw readjustment period there.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is what I was trying to say about the judgmental thing is, being aware of what people are and of their limitations. It doesn't mean you're like looking down your nose at a person, right? So like,
oh right.
You know what I mean? So like in my case, if I know that person A is toxic, has been toxic, has abused me in my lifetime, I'm not going to have person A in my life, but I'm also not going to sit around and hate that person when I'm healed, because I want positive energy in my life, not negative hate energy. Does that make sense? Am I making more sense at all? I mean, I think it's part of the thing. And I think the other thing is, when you get to the place where you can heal to that point where you can just go, okay, I recognize your limitations, toxic person. And so therefore, I'm not going to hate you. I'm not going to live in fear of you, but I'm just not going to think about you anymore because I recognize your limitations and you are toxic to me because of that. I don't think that's judgmental. I think screaming in their face and, spreading all the rumors in the world and all the things like that, that's toxic. You know what I mean? So I think it's finding like Dana was talking about the boundaries, finding a comfortable place between boundaries and personal protection. That you're exactly right. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when we get to that place, and, again, it depends on what a person's gone through, and how much a lot of that hatred and anger is completely understandable.
Of course.
But yeah, in time, kind of realizing if you can, like you said, Angie, you see their limitations and you just realize this is just who they are. This isn't, even though they were abusing me and that was intensely personal, this is just who they are. This is how they go through life. And I am one of many in this chain of people that they victimized. And yeah.
And to hold yourself in a high enough esteem that you know that you don't have to let those people in your inner circle,
Yes.
And now I want to address this. Siobhan said we have to know which limitations are okay with us, and that's hard at first. She's right, and that's what we're talking about with starting to listen to yourself. Start with wherever you need to start. If you need to block yourself out for a while and just be like, okay, nobody come near me, it's okay to do that within reason. Obviously you can't like block out your 2-year-old or whatever, but you can. I had to kind of just take some time by myself, and it was just me and my child at the time. When I left my ex-husband, I went to work and I came home. I did nothing else because I couldn't do anything else. I needed to regroup and figure out what the heck just happened. And I think that's normal, and it's okay for some people to do that if that's what feels right to them. So like I said, I still have a need for regular like, what's it called, Dana? Like alone time. I need it every day, an hour minimum, or else I feel crazy. And I maybe I want to just stare at the wall or just read a book or twiddle my little thing. I don't know. I just want to do whatever. I just want to. So everybody has a thing, and I guess my point is it's okay to embrace yourself and hold yourself in high enough esteem that you go, you deserve what you need to heal. And I'm telling you that right now, you deserve whatever it is that you need to heal. So give yourself that, be compassionate with yourself, and don't assume that just because somebody has slapped a label on themselves that is, I am the expert of all things, that they really are. Do what feels right to you in your gut. Even if somebody is an expert and they're for sure an expert, if whatever they're teaching you doesn't feel right to you, it's okay to walk away and listen to yourself and maybe find someone who does feel more comfortable for you, someone that you relate to on a level that feels comfortable. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Here's a comment too from Anastasia, who says, my experience is that narcissists love to know your boundaries so they can violate them.
It's true.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then that's another big part of this is knowing when somebody has crossed our boundaries and then continuing to hold them. So, and if it's somebody at work or if it's family or this kind of thing, it makes it a little bit more of a challenge to get some distance. But it's so vital that as soon as we realize a boundary's been crossed, we make it clear to them again, and they do it again to realize, okay, now we're in a power struggle because this person doesn't care. They're going to keep violating my boundaries. So now what am I going to do about this? How am I going to start getting some distance between them? Because they're not concerned about your boundaries, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
So
Agreed. I thought, I'm so confused. I thought there was something from, okay. You got a comment for us? I'm sorry. I was looking at a comment and I can't find, because I'm in Top Chat. Freaking Top Chat. Where's James? Is he in here still?
I saw him briefly.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure.
Here's a question.
Okay.
This is from PG 2019, who says narcissistic abuse takes a toll on the body too. Chronic aches at work. How do we explain this to our managers? You want to go for it?
Yeah, this is a tough one. If you don't have a diagnosis to share with a manager, I think that, something you could do that this is going to sound a little manipulative, but if you must take time off work, just like swing by the urgent care center and explain to the doctor there that you're not feeling well physically and whatever it is that's going on, and have them write a note if necessary. But outside of that, you can certainly share with them information about CPTSD and narcissistic abuse if you want to, but I don't think that I would do that. I think if you don't have a diagnosis and you don't have a way to, if you can't go to the doctor, you can't swing by the urgent care center. I mean, it's not their business technically why you're not feeling well, but I guess I need to know more information about what you do and how exactly you're being limited. But I think, it would depend on the manager and the type of relationship you have with them, because there have been, I haven't, thank goodness, had to work for someone else for a long time now. But when I did, it was pretty serious, and I would have to prove to them if I was going to take off more than a day or two, or, I'd have to provide a doctor's note or something. But in this case, there are some managers I had that I would have felt comfortable sharing this with, and there are others that I wouldn't have. So I think we need to know a little more about your situation to give you really direct advice. But if you have a company with HR, go to the HR department and talk with like one of the people there and explain the situation, and sometimes they can help you as well. It just really depends on your job type and stuff. Dana, thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. I guess if it was me, I would just keep it very general and just say, I am really struggling with chronic inflammation or pain, whatever it might be, and just kind of leave it at that. I just don't think most people are going to understand. And then then there's the kind of the risk of, I don't know. I would just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Inflammation or pain. I like Angie's idea of going to the urgent care and just getting some sort of note. And if you do go to urgent care, again, this stuff is not common knowledge. So there's a very solid chance you'll go to urgent care, talk to a doctor or a nurse there and say, oh yes, I've gone through abuse and I'm having kind of all of these other emotional or physical symptoms. I've been having issues with, inflammation and pain and this kind of thing. And for them to not understand, because
I would just describe the pain and the inflammation. And I would describe to one of those doctors that just the physical symptoms and not why you think it is or anything like that. They won't get it. Yeah. Dana's right. Yeah. Yeah. And another thing, the job, I see that PG also added that I make the affirmation, it will be a good day today. And the next thing, um, she knows how she feels. She falls down. So I'll tell you this. When I was going through my marriage to my ex, um, it was pretty rough, and I was very, very pregnant for part of that marriage. And one of the things that I found was that I hated going to work every day. I was miserable, and I I happened to have a little tough love from a manager there that helped. But what I ended up doing was I stood up to myself and I started doing exactly that. I did affirmations on the way to work every day. And so, like, while I was driving, I would be telling myself the whole way there, I would say them out loud. Nobody was in the car with me. I could do this. And I would tell myself, I'm going to have a great day today. Everything's going to go perfectly. This is going to be right. That's going to be right. Blah, 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 whatever it was. And I would like psych myself up. It also helps to listen to great music if you can on the way to work, anything to kind of pep you up and get you in the right frame of mind. But if you're really feeling physical symptoms, they are real. They are not, mine was partially related. I really went through a hard time, like during and postpartum. During the pregnancy and postpartum was probably the worst for me, for not only for the physical stuff, but also because I think the abuse ramped up at that time because I became less attractive in his mind when I was pregnant. And I did. I was, it's not a lie of that, but anyway, it's irrelevant. But that's the thing that I think the affirmations can really help, but also intention. You have to intend it. You can't just say it to yourself blunt, like without meaning it. And I know it sounds silly, but I remember meaning it and feeling like this little ache in my stomach about it, but intentionally imagining my energy pushing through that and doing better. And I did okay. I managed. It's still to this day wouldn't go back to that job, but I got through it, and that's what you have to do sometimes. Dana, you have a
Yeah. Thank you, Blue, for the live stream donation and the wonderful supportive message. It says, thanks for all you do. You are very welcome. Angie and I both just love doing this. I just wanted to chime in about the affirmations. I'm also a huge affirmation fan. And like Angie was saying, there's a lot of power that comes from when the affirmations get to that level of belief. And so if we're saying affirmations that we're not believing, it can help to back them up a little bit. So, yes. For example, if you're saying today is going to be a great day, and then you get out to your car and your car won't start, and then you get a flat tire or a ticket on the way to work, and then you spill hot coffee on yourself, and it's just kind of one thing after another, the reality of your situation can be in direct conflict with the affirmation. And so then it can make it seem like, okay, now you're just trying to kind of pump yourself up and reality is not matching. But if you were to slightly change that affirmation to something like, I'm going to make today a great day. So then you have more power in that. And it's like, okay, well, you know what? Then, and that kind of stuff can be done in like 100 different ways throughout every single day. So, because things are going to happen, cars aren't going to start, you're going to get a ticket, Yeah. So if that happens, then you're like, well, you know what? I'm going to make today a great day. Yeah, my car didn't start, but you know what? Okay, I'm going to take the time to text an old friend or write a letter. I am going to make today a great day, regardless of what happens. Not waiting for all the lights to be green and for today to actually be your ideal perfect day.
Yep.
So it's kind of shifting that around, but it's powerful. It's powerful stuff when you realize, like, just how much influence you really do have over your own life.
Absolutely true. Yes, absolutely. Jen Archer agrees. She says, absolutely. The power of thought is amazing. Changing the way I thought about things absolutely helped to see brighter things in life, to help me move on, to start over. I'm going to tell you something. Jen is an inspiration. Her story is currently on queenbeing.com. She wrote it herself. And her story is, it's crazy. She's actually dealing with, let me just tell you this. I'm not going to tell you her whole story right now, but I'll tell you this. She is recovering at all costs. She's recovering at all costs, and she's going through some hard times, but I know she's going to find herself in a better place very soon. So sometimes we just have to pull the Band-Aid off, and that's exactly what I think Jen did. So yeah, she's a pretty inspiring person. Anywho, I thought that was relevant to what you said, though.
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
It is. And I think that's one of the big turning points for a lot of people as well in healing is, because, Angie and I, we talk about this, like you guys are the 1%.
Yes.
The vast majority of people out there do not take time to work on personal growth, to understand. And so you're very unique in that sense. And once we start kind of turning inward and exploring all of this and our lives start working, it's that this kind of personal growth mindset, it becomes one of the criteria for people in your inner circle. And you'll start finding like, boy, I just don't have a lot in common with other people who aren't growth oriented. And it just really radically changes everything. It changes the people in your inner circle. It changes the kind of conversations you have. It changes the level of insights. It's the nature of your relationships, because then you're sharing stuff like, oh, I just learned, these are some aha moments that I had today or this week, and you're bouncing stuff off of each other. And it's cool.
Totally. Absolutely. Marina made a good point I wanted to bring up for the, for PR, was it PR? PS, I can't remember. If you tell HR you have a problem, they're responsible to do something to help fix it. Therefore, if you tell them what you want to stay confidential, tell them or your name could get out. I think that's a really good point. If you do go to HR, they are responsible to keep it confidential and to help you fix the problem, like legally speaking. So keep that in mind.
And somebody else had also made a comment that I thought was valid about if you have a therapist, talking to your therapist and saying, I'm having a lot of these physical kind of side effects from PTSD. I'm tired all the time. My muscles ache. I think sometimes you might have to just kind of even say, like, I've been under a lot of stress and I'm having these kind of physical symptoms in part due to this. And then that way your therapist can also kind of go to bat for you and talk to a doctor and or potentially write up some sort of note for your job.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I know, like when I was a kid, when I was in high school, I worked at McDonald's, and I wouldn't have even known if there was an HR department at McDonald's.
Yeah.
So it depends on the type of job you have too. I mean, I know it's going to be hard for you to go to, like if you work in fast food or retail, I don't know, retail probably has HR people, right? Anyway, just if you don't know who to talk to, you can always ask your manager, say that you have a health problem and you'd like to talk to someone in HR about it or something like that, maybe. Right?
Yep. Yep. People are still talking about affirmations, and some people are saying, oh, I would never do that, or those don't work. And, for me, it's just been a huge game changer.
Me too.
From when I was in the darkest times in my life, that was my life raft. Was affirmations. And because I needed hope and I needed to believe that it was possible. And I even went down to Michael's or Walgreens or someplace and got a bunch of poster boards and colored markers and wrote them out and thumbtacked them up around my apartment.
Great idea.
So I was just feeding my brain with all of this positivity. And it wasn't toxic positivity. It was things that I really wanted to steer into. So for example, another one of mine was, I believe that something good will happen to me and through me today. And and when I wrote that, I didn't believe that. And that's how low I was. And I really had to sit with that. And I was like, you know what? That is absolutely doable. Something good. Maybe at the time, I didn't know if anything was going to happen good to me, because it really just felt like everything just kept coming. Mm-hmm. But the one part I could control in that was that something good could happen through me today. And so what I was mentioning about texting an old friend, that's what I was doing. I was texting an old friend. I had a friend that was going through a divorce. I was sending him handwritten cards, just letting him know, hey, I'm thinking about you. And I hope all is well. And I'm here for you, and these kinds of things, just putting some love out into the world, smiling at a stranger, holding the door open for somebody. These kinds of things make a difference, and it makes us, I think, feel better, because it reconnects us to everything kind of good and right in the world. And it also gives us back that a small sense of control.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right. Yeah. I have probably affirmed myself into most of the positive change in my own life.
Yeah.
Um, and I tend to pick like a certain, like, if I'm struggling with something, I will pick a specific affirmation and I will memorize it, like a long one, and then I'll make myself say it whenever I feel negatively, as like a way to sort of redirect myself, a pattern interrupt, so to speak. Like I've talked before about when I feel any like real negative thoughts coming up in my head, I refuse to allow myself to entertain them, especially if I can't change anything about whatever I'm thinking about. And so like I go, I think to myself, or if I'm alone, I'll say out loud, I'll say, I now cancel that thought and replace it with this affirmation of my true divine desire. And then I say something I want or I'm grateful for, whether it's related or not to whatever that thing was. By the time I take the time to think of that affirmation, I have pattern interrupted myself out of that negative spiral, at least enough that I can sort of like if you're in a hole of negativity and then you have to stop and think of this thought, like it's like you get a little step up, somebody throws you a rope, now all I have to do is grab up onto the rope and pull myself out. You know what I mean? Like for those of you who are visually oriented. But it helps me even today. I use that even today because we all are human and everybody has the ability to fall into negativity. So, and a minute ago, if y'all saw me rolling my eyes, it was because my son's cat just broke into my office and came in and was making noise. So that's what that was about. Anyway, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I thought that was an important thing. Not the cat thing, but the affirmation thing.
Yes.
And that's just one example. I mean, there have been lots of them but that one has stuck with me for years because it's a kind of a sentence I have to remember. And just the moment of stopping and like accessing that different part of my brain to read that is helpful in switching things up.
It's huge. And like what you'd mentioned too about music, I had this situation at my last job, and it was one of the main reasons it was like, I feel like the universe just kept sending me all these messages. And finally it just kind of, everything came to a head and it was like, okay, I've got to go. Like, this is just not for me anymore. And towards the tail end, I had this coworker who I just call Voldemort. Voldemort was making my life an absolute living hell. And so I was doing anything and everything to try to just crowd out all of that negativity. And so one of the things that I was doing is I was putting on some Grateful Dead on my phone. And so, which is kind of just like this hippie summertime music. And I would just leave it at a low volume and I would play Grateful Dead all day at work. And people, I also put up a giant picture of Hawaii. That's like 8 feet long. It was a poster I got at Michael's or someplace. It was like $10. And it was the most relaxing scene. And then other coworkers began coming in my office, like, oh my gosh, like you're on vacation in here. It's wonderful. That's and awesome. I was like, you know what? You're not going to harsh my mellow. Like, right. You don't get that. So yeah, you can do whatever you're going to do. And inside, there were many times where I was falling apart. I'm like, I'm not going to let her have the satisfaction of knowing how bad this is really rattling me because she's enjoying it. So I'm just going to put on some music and put up some posters and just act like I'm fine.
Yep, it's the best thing you could do.
Yep.
And that's, until you can get out of there, right? I mean, but that's really, it's stressful. It is. And but you're right. That's what you have to, I love that don't harsh my mellow thing because it's funny. When I first started recovering and really getting my head around stuff, my first instinct was to refuse to have any negative energy in my space at all. And so if anyone did come into my space with negative energy, I freaked out a little bit. But then it occurred to me that I was like still kind of stopped up, like emotionally constipated. I know that's a really attractive idea, but I was, I couldn't quite figure out, like I was here, but I couldn't quite get over the hump. You know what I'm talking about? So I had to, like, unfortunately, I had to let myself feel the emotions before I could release them. And that's why my practice has gone to that. I think it's important for people to be able to feel the emotions before we can release them. And so that's why I always encourage people to allow themselves that time to mourn and grieve, but then, move forward. And I think that was where my biggest mistake, because I didn't need to freak out if people came. I needed to be more like Dan and be like, you're not harsh on my mellow, and so that's a really positive example that you said there. I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, no.
Here's from Anastasia again, says, I start the day with affirmations and a headset that prevents the narcissist from penetrating my positive wall of sound in the morning. I made a YouTube playlist with everyday and special occasion affirmations.
Right on.
I love that.
Me too. That's a great
Love
idea.
that. Yeah, Tony Robbins has a thing I heard years ago. Kind of however much time you have every day, making this part of your routine. And it was how he calls it like an hour of power, or
Oh,
you
I
can
like that.
do, yeah, like 10 minutes to thrive or what have you. And it's focused time where you're either going for a walk and you're reciting this stuff to yourself, or you're feeding your brain some sort of positivity. You're thriving for however long you can every day, and you're making it part of your daily routine, just like you would brushing your teeth. You could probably even do it while you're brushing your teeth.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Yeah. That's a great, it's important. And I think to do it with intention, that's an important part of the day. And I think, I like, oh, I saw that. I don't even know where I saw it. I saw somebody talking about water. When you drink your water, that you put both of your hands on your water, and, and focus on drinking the water, because it, and focus on that when you drink the water into your body, it's, bringing in positivity. It was kind of woo woo, but I liked it because it gave me this thought of, here's a be drinking water. And, and so if you can take the time that you're drinking your water, put your hands around the bottle or the cup, all the way, and intend, that with each sip, you're going to get a little healthier, a little happier, whatever. And then you can imagine that the water's kind of swimming around in your body, bringing all the health. It was it was cool. It was kind of woo woo, like I said, but I have a little woo woo in me.
yeah,
So
I do too. I love stuff like that. I think it's
yeah,
important to, I think
yeah,
that's for those that pray and for those that don't. But like mealtime, I think that's one of the powers of prayer is taking time to slow down and acknowledge, this is food that's going to nourish our body. And I don't think that you need to be religious to do this. Like you're
gratitude.
saying,
Yeah,
to be like, this is, I am feeding every single cell in my body. This is nourishing my cells, which is true. My cells are working every single moment of every single day to heal and repair themselves. There's this whole universe going on inside of us that's working around the clock
yeah.
for your highest and greatest good.
It's pretty
That's
amazing.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I love that. Yeah, it's so important. Yeah. Oh, that's yeah, yeah. I was just I think I missed the beginning of that. Um, sorry, I'm way up in the chat. You know how I get lost in the chat
Okay. Yeah. Go
sometimes.
for it.
Okay, so I like what Nail says. We can decide with care who we allow into our lives. I personally don't want to be around anyone who doesn't have empathy or kindness, and I want to just comment on that. I feel the same way. Um, and 80-90% of the time I accomplish it, but like I can't control who shows up at the PTA meeting or whatever, you know what I mean? I can't. But what I can do is not give those people my attention if I feel like they're toxic people. And that's why I think we all have to kind of learn to, like Dana said, put up our posters and listen to our Grateful Dead and don't harsh our mellow, y'all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like put up a little bubble around yourself if you have to, whatever that feels like for you. I think that was I love everything you said there. That might be where all the pink came from. Y'all don't see it anymore, but it's still pink over there in my office. Um, I love pink, and I always felt like it was a warm, loving color, and so I have a lot of pink in my office. Not in the rest of my house, ironically enough, just the office. But that's where I do all my creating, so
Mhm.
it makes sense to me. Anyway, Laura, do you got one for us?
Uh, let's see. Here's a comment from Kaylee who says, I literally took days to stay home and cry and watch all your videos. And it was only after scheduling these days several times a week to be alone and to be sad and dwell in my pain have I been able to see a glimpse of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. That is exactly what I was talking about, Kaylee. That's exactly right. Sometimes you just have to do that. You just have to take a day and be like, you know what? This is my day or my
Yeah.
week or whatever you can afford, and let yourself do it. Cry if you need to cry and throw things and break things. Go ahead. Just don't break anything expensive. You know what I mean? Take care of yourself. Sometimes our self-care needs to be, I really need to cry about this right now. I really need to feel
Yeah.
this. and it sucks. Nobody wants to do it, but we have to get through it sometimes. We're human, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
We've had an ongoing joke over on my channel about, it came about something, we were talking about something like this and about getting emotions out and how it would be so great to create a cafe called the Rage Cafe, and where it was like a junkyard in the back and you just gave people like a cup of coffee and a sledgehammer. You could go out there and just go to town on an old car or an old computer or whatever, and then come back in, have your cup of coffee, and you just get it out of your system. And
I love that.
It's
a good idea.
Yeah, because we all bottle this stuff up, and most people, I think, are uncomfortable with their anger. They're uncomfortable with the anger of others, especially a lot of us, because anger has always been a very negative thing, and it's always kind of been a precursor to a relationship ending. And so there's a lot of stress that accompanies anger, but then realizing, yeah, okay, you know what? Anger doesn't have to be a scary emotion. Like, we can process this in a healthy way, and it has a message for us.
And it can be a catalyst to help us get out of it. To move away from the negativity. It was for me. I mean, in fact, I honestly think that if I hadn't experienced the type of, like, I don't even know that I would call it anger when it first happened. I think it was more like horrific betrayal and just shock and horror. But it turned to anger like that. and then I was able to go no contact and walk away without even thinking twice. I mean, I thought 10 times about it, I'm not gonna lie, but in the moment I was able to say, don't call me again, don't contact me again, this is over. And that was way outside of my relationship with that person. You know what I mean? I never had the nerve for my whole life to say that, even though I'd wanted to many times. So I do think anger can be a catalyst, and not just in that was a parent situation, but even, you know, in a situation like when I left my ex-husband, like I actually did so because I let myself really feel what he had done that made me need to leave. And that pushed me forward enough that I could tell someone who I knew wouldn't let me out of it once I told them, and then I had to leave. So that was crazy. Anyway, my point is, anger can be a catalyst for positive change in your life. So
yes, and we had read a book a while back, and I think it was the Pete Walker Tao of Fully Feeling, and one of the comments he made in there, which I thought was so profound, was that men tend to be more in tune with their anger and less in tune with sadness. And women tend to be more in tune with sadness and less in tune with anger. And I think that's so completely spot on. And, you know, so it was one of these aha moments for me in my own life, because I've struggled with depression my whole life. And after reading that book, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? I think a lot of this is anger.
Yeah.
And I never identified it as anger because I could probably count on one hand how many times I've been angry in the past 10 years. And that's probably a problem. So, you know, kind of realizing I need to get more in tune with this side of myself. And my guess would be that a lot of people who really struggle with depression probably feel there's probably a lot of anger there too. But if we're so out of tune with feeling angry because we don't feel it's valid, you know, oh, well, I should just focus on the bright side, or, oh, things could be worse, or, oh, it's like a lot of what we're talking about. There's kind of that fine line there between making this power work for us and then invalidating our experience. And that can be a challenge to walk that tightrope, but realizing, okay, I need to get in tune with these different emotions and, you know, feel them. And it's so wild once you start waking up to these different emotions. They're like, how did I numb out to this and not even realize it? And so what can be helpful is thinking about, how do you experience sadness? You know, what kind of body language do you have? What do you do? Do you sleep a lot? Do you not sleep at all? Do you cry? How do you do these things? When you're angry, same thing. What is your body language? Do you tend to get loud? How do you experience anger? Getting in tune with yourself. And then if you're feeling emotionally stuck, you're like, you know what? I'm feeling kind of numb. And I think there is sadness there or there is anger there, to try to provoke these emotions, kind of milk these emotions in a safe, controlled way. So maybe watching a sad movie, or listening to some music that really is like, kind of fight music kind of thing. And you go outside and you go for a jog, or you go to the gym, or you get all amped up and then you journal, or you talk to your life coach, your therapist, or what have you.
I like to roll up my sleeves and do dishes sometimes when I'm mad.
You
Attack those
can
dishes.
come to my house whenever you get mad.
Right? I mean, no, really, it somehow is therapeutic to me. It's something about cleaning the dirt off the dishes and then squeaky clean when they're done. I don't know. Really helpful. But I think that's a very valid point. And I think another thing, and I think you kind of alluded to this already, but I just want to pull it out. I was not allowed to be angry as a child. When I got angry, I was in trouble. And in my marriage, same thing. I had to shut down. I had to numb out in order to survive it. I was not allowed to feel feelings of negativity that were not, unless they were about myself. And I was totally cool with that, apparently. Uh, so, um, so not being allowed to be angry in an abusive relationship, it certainly would lend to your changing the way you feel anger. So like me personally, when I feel it, I feel like I get dizzy a little bit if I'm super, like if something shocks and horrifies me in a like I'm just shocked angry. Like sometimes I have to build up to it, but like when something instantly affects me like that, I get dizzy a little bit, like, and I see stars in front of my eyes. And that's a weird thing to say, but that's exactly how the most serious forms of anger affect me. And I think it's because it's so profound. I don't like to feel angry, you know what I mean? But if I'm going to feel it, that's usually how it manifests. If it's instant anger, sometimes I have to like think about it and then get angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a real thing. And it's not, and I think the other thing is too, we have to find that place where we can express it safely to people who will understand and not take it out on people who don't deserve it. Like I know a lot of people that I've even some of my clients have said to me, that they've taken it out on their children without meaning to, like verbally yelled at them. And I'm sure everybody's yelled at their kid if they've had a kid once when they didn't mean to. But I think in general, it's really important to be careful with that. And because anger is justified in this situation that we've all gone through. It's justified and you need it sometimes to move forward, but when it stops being productive in your life, then I think it's time to try to release it. And I saw a comment that I wanted to talk about that I thought was really good. Anastasia says it also helps to place your hand on your sternum, your upper chest, because this activates the sympathetic nervous system and physiologically makes you feel held. I kind of love that, so I wanted to share that. If you all saw me doing that earlier, and that's what I was doing. Anyway, sorry. Did you see that comment, Dana?
No, but I'm down at the bottom. I think we're at two very different places.
That's probably good.
Yeah, it probably is good. Yeah. And then Tracy asked to just repeat. She said, Dana, can you say that again about the differences in how men and women experience anger and sadness? That men tend to be more in tune with anger and less in tune with sadness. A lot of this is social conditioning, right? It's men kind of be a man, men don't cry, boys don't cry, these kinds of things. That's why. So anger is more socially acceptable for them. And for women, it's the opposite. Women tend to be more in tune with sadness and very less in tune with anger. Women and I would say also expressing themselves. We get together, we call our friends, we talk for hours, we go out for lunch, we cry, we vent often to each other, it's very off-putting for a lot of women when somebody's angry. Like just nobody knows how to handle that. And so it's getting in balance with those emotions.
And I don't know about you, Dana, but I got to this point personally where even today, like if I ever find myself like talking too much, I'll instantly want to apologize. I'll instantly want to be like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take up the whole conversation, or, oh, I don't mean to keep talking about myself. And I think because of what I went through, I was taught quickly that talking about myself was never always, it was not usually something that was acceptable to certain people in my life. And so I think I became conditioned to that. And I have to remind myself, like somebody posted something on one of the videos I did recently where they were like, you're just talking about yourself. And I wasn't. I was sharing a story about my experience going through recovery, but I felt like a little bit triggered by that because, I hardly, I guess my point is that we all have to recognize these things in ourselves. We have to recognize that it's, even if we are female and we normally would talk to our friends about this stuff or whatever, even I do the same thing with my friends. Even I feel like I don't want to like, take up too much of their time with my boring life or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm only bringing that up because I imagine if I have those moments, then, still today, then other people might as well. So that's all. I think it could be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because that's something that I'm very hyper aware of as well with myself. And it's something I'm also trying to work on, because I can just really get going, especially on topics that I'm really passionate about. But yeah. But, I think that's the thing. It's realizing that your contribution does have value, and then kind of figuring out, okay, well, how do I balance this? And yeah, it's just all in, self-awareness. And
this is why we need a girls' weekend. I'm just saying.
I agree. I know. I agree. Let's see. PG asked real quick, Dana, you said you have struggled with depression. Does that mean you don't anymore? Does it ever end? Can we totally heal from depression? I keep saying I hate depression. Well, for me, so I have gone back and forth with medication, with therapy, with all kinds of stuff for decades. And I really just think that I struggle with major depressive disorder. It's just kind of always there. It's to the degree. It doesn't ever really lift. It's just kind of always there. So at the end of 2018, and the challenge for me too is I have a very hard time with knowing how bad things are, because it's just kind of it's like a balloon deflating. Like I just don't really notice it. And then one day I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not functioning, and I haven't been functioning for months or even years. So I decided in 2018 to do something different. And so I made the vow to myself that for 2019, one of my resolutions was going to be to basically manage my mental health. So one of the things I was going to leave behind in 2018 was unmanaged mental health. So what am I going to bring forward into 2019, and what am I going to leave behind in 2018? So that was one of the things I was leaving behind, unmanaged mental health. So that meant for me to go see a nurse practitioner and to get on some medication and to keep up with these appointments and to let people that are in my inner circle know this is my challenge. I tend to struggle with knowing when things aren't good. So if I'm not doing well, please be honest with me. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I really need this insight, because it's one of those things nobody really wants to talk about it. But then I just, I need that. I need that kind of outside input from my family and my closest friends to say, hey, there's something off here. We're concerned. So that's how I've been managing depression. And then also supplements have been vitamin D, vitamin B have been huge for me. Making time for self-care and really getting clear. I've also been really trying to get in tune with my emotions, because I do think a lot of it has to do with unresolved anger and frustration at other people, but a lot of it's from myself. So just getting honest with yourself, it's a lot more difficult than we sometimes think.
It's true. I previously struggled with depression almost like basically my whole first 30 years of my life or whatever, 35 maybe. But removing the most toxic people from my life was a start for me. And then recognizing, for me, again, I was diagnosed bipolar as a teenager, but that was because my mother told the doctor I was bipolar. I'm not bipolar. But I do have ADD. That's diagnosed, and I think that's real. But I also have the idea that it can be connected to CPTSD, and I've sat down and figured out the science behind that. It's possible that ADD is connected, but it's irrelevant because it's something that I just have to deal with. So I cope. I do coping strategies, whatever it is. Like I'm showing you my little whatever this thing is, fidget spinner that I hold while I do my streams with Dana, because that way I stay focused and I don't wander off in my head, which is silly, but that's true. Mostly I don't. But I think the point is, for me, I did mostly end the depression in my life. Do I still sometimes have a bout of depression where I'm sad for an evening or an afternoon or a couple hours? Yes. But but what I do now is I change my perspective intentionally. And it, again, this is me. Everybody's different, and always talk to your doctor before you try anything that we talk about. Um, just disclaimer. But for me, it's really about understanding myself. And as Dana said, like radical self acceptance, unconditional self acceptance, accepting, looking at yourself honestly and like in the ugliest light possible. Which I say that because my bathroom light has ugly light. Every time you stand in there, you're like, oh my gosh, you know, ugly light. But honest light, looking at yourself honestly and being okay with who you really are, being okay with the things that you can change and the things that you can't change, and choosing to change the ones you want, whatever. She's right, that honest, open ability to look at yourself and your life and go, okay, this is who I am. My office, it's a little messy, but
Mhm.
hey, it's pink, or whatever. My whatever. No, nobody's perfect. And being okay with your imperfections and your flaws. And in fact, loving yourself, not just in spite of them, but maybe even because of them, whatever they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That part, it's hard to explain how deeply that does affect a person, but you're right. It's deep and it's real. And when I got there, holy schmolies, like it's so beautiful to be totally fine with who you are and not feel shame. I felt
Hmm.
shame for so long, that to be able to just like let go of that and go, nope, I'm not perfect. Oh well, I'm good
Yeah.
enough. You know what I mean? That is a tremendous uh, personal change, beautiful thing. It changes your whole world and potentially the worlds of those people that are closest to you in really good ways.
Yeah, and I think especially if you have children, it
That's what I was
really
thinking.
role,
Yeah,
yeah, like it really
yeah,
role models this level of positive acceptance because we all have stuff about us, but again, people don't talk about it. And so when people do struggle with things, whatever it might be, a physical, they have psoriasis or they have chronic pain or they have depression or you know, they've lost a bunch of weight and they have loose skin or you know you name it, everybody kind of walks around feeling like it's just them.
right.
And that's one of the, I think the cool things about YouTube is there's so many channels out there where people they do talk about all
Yeah.
of these things. And they're so, there was one channel I came across the other day. This woman had massive hair loss. I mean, I've never seen female hair loss like this before in my life. And she was so accepting of it. And here she had this channel and she talked about different things that she did and how, kind of what happened to her and how she was moving forward. And oh, Kitty.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Kitty.
Hello. She is here.
A little tiger, little bitty
Yes.
tiger.
Yes.
But
She's a sweetie.
it's so cool because then other people are like, wow, yeah, you're right. I can relate. And, it just, you realize everybody's got something. So, but Missouri Cowboy says, well, isn't depression a healthy, normal response to disturbing things?
It can
Yeah,
be.
it
Yeah.
can be. The general rule of thumb is depression is normal, but if it lasts longer than 2 weeks, that's not normal.
Right.
So, and I would say debilitating depression. Like if you're having suicidal thoughts, if you can't function, if you are feeling helpless and hopeless and tearful and um, just beside yourself, it's time. It's time to go to the doctor or a nurse practitioner and at least reach out and let somebody else know because that's the other thing is this can very quickly become our new normal,
Yeah.
and we don't. I remember the first time the doctor had asked me like, "How long have you been feeling this way? Have you been feeling this way for longer than 2 weeks?" And I just laughed. I was like, "You're kidding, right? Like years. I've been feeling this way for years."
Yeah.
And realizing, okay, now this is a problem. And sometimes I know people are real polarized when it comes to antidepressants and these kinds of things, but sometimes when a person is so low, they have a hard time getting moving to even do the self-care necessary to get out of the depression. So sometimes those meds are needed to get a person to a certain place where
I
they
would.
can eat healthy and take supplements and start getting exercise and doing that. Because if you're in bed and you're sleeping, 12 hours a day and you wake up tired and you can't function, you need something more.
Yeah. And I want to comment on that because while I do not take depression medication now, I did, and it helped me when I left my I mean, when I was a kid, I was just it was given to me because I was not. But I was depressed. I was not bipolar. But as a young adult, when I got divorced, I was devastated about that whole, devastated. I
Mm-hmm.
could barely function. And so I did go to the doctor and they put me on Prozac and I took it for 6 months and it helped me get over that. It helped me climb out of the hole. And no, I was not perfect when it was over, but at the end of the 6 months, I noticed I was not feeling things. Like my aunt died and I couldn't cry. And I watched a
Mm-hmm.
movie that I should have made me cry, it didn't make me cry. And I was like, that's not good. So then I went to the doctor and asked them to wean me off. You do need to check with the doctor if you decide to go off of these medications, just so that you know. But I, when I it helped, it probably saved my life in that time. It probably did, because that and the fact that I had to be a mother to a child, a baby, he was 16 months old when I left. um, but it probably saved my life, because I couldn't function. Like, I was getting up, I was going to work, I was not doing my hair and make I was showering, thank goodness. That
Mm-hmm.
was it. I was
Yeah.
showering and doing laundry and nothing else for myself physically. And then one day, after about 2 weeks of, maybe a month of being on the medication, I woke up one day and I was like, I'm alive. And I was able to get up and put makeup on and do my hair and look like myself again. And I know that's not everybody is a makeup hair person, but I always was. And for me to go out in the world without makeup, without my hair done, was something else. And that was, I literally felt like it brought me back to life. So again, I don't like ever push anyone to get on medication. I don't necessarily advocate medication, but I will tell you, it did help me get out of the hole. And it probably saved me from a far worse fate. So I hope that, if you are thinking about doing medication and you're with your doctor, or you're talking, you're on medication, never feel shamed about that. Don't let anyone tell you that you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Just take care of yourself in the way that you need to take care of yourself. Follow your gut. You know what I mean? And talk to your doctor
Yeah.
always.
And, if you have the energy, if you are able to, a good 20 minutes a day, even walking around the block, getting vitamin D is huge. Exercise is huge. It releases a ton of dopamine. It's just fantastic. So if you can do that, PG is saying meds haven't worked for me. That could be a good start, but there's lots of other treatments out there too. It's just, if things are that bad, then something needs to happen. And it might be some trial and error. Oftentimes it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's truly, a, meds aren't for everybody. And if they have negative side effects for you or whatever, then don't take them. Like I said, when I got to the point where I was starting to stand up on my own again, I realized I had gotten kind of numb, and that wasn't great for me. But in the moments that I needed it, it did help me. And some people say, my husband, when he went through his divorce from his first wife, he took St. John's wort. It really helped him. And it was just a supplement he could buy over the counter. Personally, it didn't work for me. I tried it, it didn't work for me. So everybody's different. You know what I mean? You have to, again, we're not here to discuss medication, but talk to your doctor and find out what's best for you. Yeah. Dana, I just realized what time it is, and I'm like I've got to.
Okay.
So let's,
Okay.
grab another one and.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to look for one, and
Sure.
I'll look for one, and we'll see who finds one first.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Let's see here. Oh, Anastasia says, and I don't know if this is a question so much, but I would like to encourage her on this. Says, every day I keep working on my health as much as I can manage. I just don't tell my narcissist about it. And I think that's smart. Because if you're still in the situation, I'm trying to see, she says her narcissist mother is trying to destroy her. She's helped by the fact that she's living with a chronic illness. Oh, I'm so sorry. I would tell you to keep doing what you're doing as far as working on your health, and if at all possible, continue to maybe make plans to kind of move yourself away from her. If that's, I know that might not be possible at this time, but it's something to think about, and keep doing what you're doing, keep moving in that direction. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just to touch on this real quick, something you said, Angie, that was so right on about really examining your inner circle. Because I think a lot of people do start really getting sick because they're so numbed out to when they're being mistreated. And this has just been going on for a very long time, and they don't realize it. And so really kind of figuring out who is supportive of you, who is being supportive in the ways that you need them to be supportive, and respects your boundaries and all of that, and learning who is safe, who is emotionally safe, and who is emotionally unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
And it might not be so black or white. It might be that a certain person's emotionally safe in certain ways, but then not so much in other ways. Like maybe you can't share your goals with them because they'll tell you all the reasons it won't work.
Right.
But you can talk about everything else. So kind of figuring out, like what Anastasia was saying, these are some certain things that she can't talk to her mother about.
Right.
And that's huge. Kind of
knowing that. Yeah.
Yes. And then altering the way that we interact with those kinds of people is just such a game changer, because then we don't leave feeling angry and upset and irritated and aggravated and disappointed and all of that, because our expectation for them matches the reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a game changer.
Yeah.
So.
And I want to bring up this one last thing from Mo Cowboy that I thought was a really great tip for those of us who are struggling and feeling stuck. He says, little goals for me were like getting out of bed and taking a shower. And, that's legit. Look, it's legit. Baby steps, people. You don't need to like wake up tomorrow and everything's perfect. Maybe you just need to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to get out of bed and take a shower. And then if you want to go back to bed and you're able to do that in your schedule, go ahead. Don't feel like you have to make all the changes in one day. Give yourself the time that you need. And maybe, some of you might be like, I'm waking up tomorrow and tomorrow my life's going to be better. And maybe it will be, but it's okay if it's not. That's all I'm saying. Give yourself the freedom and the flexibility that you need. I just think it's so important to heal. And yet at the same time, try not to stay in that mourning phase for too long. Allow yourself to live at the same time. Don't feel guilty about living.
Yeah. Yeah. And celebrating those small wins.
Yes.
Because it does help to build momentum. True. It's hard, man. Like when you've had your life blown apart like this, it's not just the ending of a relationship. There's a change with your identity. There's a change with your own self-esteem when there's abuse present. There's a change if you're getting a divorce, with the different friends you have and your living situation and your income. And there's a lot of changes going on all at once. And so it is hard. And to have that many all at once can be really overwhelming. And it's okay to giving yourself some self-compassion here and being like, okay, you know what? I am really going through a lot. Like this is legit a lot. So it's okay to just kind of downshift and offload what can be offloaded and really hunker down and focus on your self-care.
Totally agree. 100%. And if that means that, you wait till next week to start keto, that's fine. Or whatever you're doing, or you wait till next month to, finally, stop having your nightly martini. I never had a martini in my life, but I'm just saying, if you were going to, you know what I mean? Whatever you think you need to change about yourself, you don't have to change it all at once. Give yourself a break and self-care, like Dana said. I love it, love it, love it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Well, we're going to sign off. So you guys, thank you so much for being here. This is something that we do every Tuesday. We do rotate channels. So next week we'll be over on Angie's channel, Angie Atkinson, across the interweb. So you can find her on YouTube. We normally go live around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. So we hope to see you there.
Yes.
Okay.
See you there. Dana, don't forget, picture.
Yes, I'll send you something. Okay. All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.